Taxes are higher, interest rates are up, grocery prices have skyrocketed, home prices are up, and Canadians are left helpless as this Liberal government has lost its way. Unfortunately, the speech from the throne did very little to give people hope and to inspire optimism for better days ahead, Mr. Speaker. While there are some measures outlined that can be seen as steps in the right direction,
I regret to interrupt the member. It is now time for statements by members. The member will have about 5 minutes after question period is done. For now, it's statements by members. Déclaration de député.
Statements by members.
Surrey, White Rock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today for the first time in the 45th Parliament with gratitude and humility. I am the first member of the Liberal Party to win my riding in 70 years. To the people of South Surrey, White Rock, thank you for placing your trust in me. It's an honor to serve as your representative. To my family, the incredible volunteers and supporters, thank you very much for your time, energy, and unwavering dedication. I could not have done this without you. My work in this House has already begun. My priorities for South Surrey White Rock include protecting our border community, addressing the urgent pressures on housing and affordability, and building safer and secure neighbourhoods. I would like to recognize this week being National Accessibility Week, a time to celebrate the contributions of persons with disabilities and build more inclusive and accessible communities. I wish to thank Stephanie Cadieux, my dear friend and Canada's first ever Chief Accessibility Officer, for her continued leadership and...
The member for Richmond Centre, Marpole.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to sound the alarm on a national emergency that's devastating families across the country, the drug crisis. I listened carefully to the speech from the throne. I was disappointed and frankly alarmed that this crisis was barely acknowledged. Just 18 words were offered on a tragedy that has claimed 50,000 Canadian lives in the past decade. 50,000 Canadians dead from overdoses since 2015, more than all the Canadian soldiers who died in the Second World War. Yet the government continues to downplay it. The Prime Minister even said on the campaign trail that Canada is facing a challenge, not a crisis. He is dead wrong. In British Columbia, overdose is now the leading cause of death for youth aged 10 to 18. In February, a 14-year-old girl died alone at home in Surrey. In July 2024, a 13-year-old girl in Prince George lost her life to overdose. When will this Liberal government put an end to its reckless drug policy and failed decriminalization experiment?
Député pour Orléans.
The Honourable Member for Orleans. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to thank the residents of Orleans for giving me the opportunity to continue representing them at the House of Commons. It's a tremendous honour and privilege, and I am grateful for their trust. I would also like to thank my campaign team and the hundreds of volunteers who took the time day after day to come out and help us share our message. People throughout the campaign gave me a clear mandate. They talked about their concerns, tax cuts, getting rid of GST for first-time homebuyers, and the elimination of federal barriers to internal trade. Furthermore, in terms of our country's sovereignty, like our national anthem says, and as King Charles III reiterated in his throne speech, the true North is indeed strong and free, and it will remain so forever. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to start by acknowledging members of community councils from Long Range Mountains here with us today. I am immensely grateful for the work that they do for our communities, and it's an honor to have them here in the capital. I would also like to take a moment to commemorate the I Love You Foundation, a foundation built on hope, kindness, and love in honor and memory of Isla Short. They raise funds to help families who battle the challenges that come with having a child with a life-threatening condition. Once a year, and this year on May 23rd, the community of Deer Lake comes together to fundraise and celebrate I Love You Day, a celebration of Isla's life. There's a carnival, cupcakes, ice cream, and lots of jokes, all symbols of childhood joy. To Sarah and Michael, Isla's parents, and all of the incredible volunteers and donors who make this day possible, thank you for transforming heartbreak into hope and showing the country what it means to care for one another.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Mr. Speaker, the Blue and Gold Order of Merit is a prestigious award presented by the Université de Moncton to graduating students who have demonstrated outstanding academic achievement, community involvement, and participation in student life. I would like to congratulate two young people from my riding, Jennifer Lepage-Robidoux, a graduate with a bachelor's degree in education, and Simon Theriot, a graduate with a bachelor's degree in social sciences, for receiving this mark of recognition, which crowns a university career dedicated to excellence. I would also like to take this opportunity to congratulate the 322 people who received a diploma or certificate at the 73rd graduation ceremony at the university at the Edmundston campus. This is a milestone in their journey, and I hope that many of them will choose to remain in our region. We have so much talent in our region, and it's an honor to represent here in Ottawa this beautiful riding. Thank you.
Columbia, Kootenay, Southern Rockies.
On behalf of my colleagues, past and present, I rise today to pay tribute to the late Jim Gout, former Member of Parliament who passed away on May 27th after a courageous 3-year battle with cancer. Jim was first elected in 1993 as a Reform Party MP for Kootenay West Revelstoke. He served for 12 years, 4 elections, later representing the Southern Interior BC with the Conservative Party. Before politics, Jim worked as an air traffic controller. His deep knowledge of Canada's transportation sector earned respect across party lines. A dedicated parliamentarian, he served on many committees, always focused on providing sound, informed advice to government. His maiden speech, he said, "Those who are from the Kootenays know how incredible it is. Those who are from other places are mistaken in believing that theirs equal it." On retiring in 2005, Jim said it was time to enjoy life with his wife Anne and practice the 3 Gs, gardening, golf, and grandchildren. Jim leaves a legacy of service, integrity, and dedication. We extend our deepest condolences. May he rest in peace.
The member for Bay of Quinte.
Monsieur President,
Mr. Speaker,
I rise today for my first time as Member of Parliament for the great riding of Bay of Quinte. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude and optimism as I look out at this 45th Parliament and all the new faces and returning faces who I will be working alongside as we build a better Canada. I also want to thank my wife Sandy and my daughters Nicole and Rochelle, and also want to thank the tireless volunteers who helped secure this victory for the Bay of Quinte. I wouldn't be here without you all. Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize that June is the start of Pride season here in Canada, and it's a time to celebrate the vibrancy and contributions of 2S LGBTQIA+ communities we have in my riding of Bay of Quinte and across Canada. It is also to recommit ourselves to the work that still needs to be done to ensure we have true equality and opportunity in our society. This Sunday, Pride Week starts in the Bay of Quinte, with events taking place.
La députée pour Belge.
the Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Etchemy-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, after a throne speech that seemed inspired by fiscal prudence advocated by the Conservatives, the actions taken by the new Prime Minister quickly dashed any hopes. Promises of austerity in the morning, spending sprees in the afternoon, an additional $6 billion for consultants, while families in Lévis are lining up for food hampers. We had thought for a moment that the Prime Minister had finally understood the Conservative logic, reduce the tax burden by reducing the size of government. But he only half understood it. You can't cut taxes while inflating spending. That's not responsibility, it's inflation. And this uncontrolled liberal inflation has doubled the number of food bank users in some organizations in my riding in just 3 years. The Prime Minister seems to be following in the footsteps of his predecessor. Canadians deserve better. The House deserves better, and we deserve a budget this spring. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Rimouski, La Matapedia. Mr. Speaker, it's with immense pride that I rise today as Rimouski welcomes, for the second time since 2009, the Memorial Cup, a must-see event in Canadian junior hockey. Since the start, our region has shown that outside the big cities, we think big. It's already a resounding success. The Bas-Saint-Laurent region becomes the land of champions, and at the heart of this success is the Rimouski Oceanic, the team of our region that has renewed its confidence to host this prestigious event. I'd like to thank the Tanguay family, the committee led by Sébastien Noël, the volunteers, and the community for their exemplary mobilization. I'd also like to congratulate the young players for their talent and sportsmanship. Together, you have proven that our region can host major events and make them a success with pride, passion, and determination. Good luck to the finalists, and happy Memorial Cup.
Ottawa.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa Centre.
Thank the people of Ottawa Centre. It is a true honor to serve my community and a responsibility I carry with deep humility and commitment. Throughout the campaign, I heard a clear call for leadership that listens and delivers. That's what I'm here to do. I'll keep working hard to expand access to dental care, build more affordable housing on public land, and advance the seniors' health and housing hub at Confederation Heights. Revitalizing our downtown is also a top priority, from transforming the Dow's Lake and Arboretum into year-round community destinations to improving bike paths and supporting local businesses. And yes, I'm excited to keep pushing to bring the Ottawa Senators to La Breton Flats, along with a bold, community-led vision that includes affordable housing, Indigenous culture, and French language education. Speaker, I will always stand up for Ottawa Centre and for a stronger, more inclusive Canada. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
The member for Cloverdale, Langley City.
So this is what it looks like when a country is flying blind. No budget, no plan, and millions of families left in the dark. Parliament was shut down for half a year, and then came the snap election, and now the new Prime Minister wants to spend $500 billion but is refusing to deliver a budget. No answers, just smoke and mirrors, while real people are struggling to stay afloat. I know a young couple in the GTA doing everything right, working hard, saving every dollar, and yet they still can't afford a home. Pre-construction sales are down over 70%, and experts say a housing shortage is just around the corner. The dream of home ownership is slipping away. And for families who already own, mortgage payments are falling behind, groceries and gas are eating up what's left of the paycheck, and our young people, kids just starting out, drowning in credit card debt. No business would ever let a new CEO get away with this. The board would demand a budget, and Canadians deserve the same.
Hear, hear.
The member for Canada.
Mr. Speaker, last week I had the honor of being sworn in once again as the Member of Parliament for Canada. Standing with my family, friends, and dedicated volunteers who helped make this journey possible was deeply moving and a moment I will never forget. Public service is a privilege, and I'm incredibly grateful for the trust that the residents of Canada have placed in me once again. I'm ready to work hard every day to be their voice here in Parliament and to champion the issues that matter most in our community. To the residents of Canada, Bells Corners, Stittsville, and Carp, it's an honor to serve on your behalf, and this seat belongs to all of you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
It turns out the Prime Minister was telling the truth when he said he was different from Justin Trudeau. He's actually worse. This week, the Prime Minister introduced his first spending bill, called the Main Estimates for the coming year. It's a $500 billion spending bill with no budget. He promised to cap spending increases to 2%, but then 1 hour later stuck Canadians with an 8% spending hike, nearly 3 times larger than inflation and population growth combined. Single moms, seniors, and small business owners have to budget before they spend. Why doesn't the Prime Minister? This all from the guy who said he was the man with the plan and would be a strong fiscal manager. The Prime Minister will claim these are investments that will make Canadians better off, but the only ones getting richer are government consultants, who will get a record-breaking $26.1 billion this year. That's even 36% more than what Trudeau gave them. Mr. Speaker, that's $1,400 from every Canadian household going to federal government consultants. Brookfield shareholders wouldn't have stood for this, so why should Canadians?
The member for London Centre.
Mr. Speaker, recently I had the honor for the 4th time to be sworn in as a Member of Parliament, now representing the constituency of London Centre. I thank naturally, of course, I thank my colleagues and look forward to working with everyone in this House. Of course, I thank my family and my beautiful wife, Katie, our daughter, Ava, and all the volunteers who put aside so much time to put in signs, to knock on doors, yes, to write checks so the campaign could happen in the first place. All of those things, and I know that every member in this House feels equally about those volunteers. Nothing happens in democracy, of course, without them. And so the work begins, prioritizing matters like trade. I'm from London, Ontario. London is situated in southwestern Ontario, an area of the country that is disproportionately impacted by the Trump tariffs. Housing issues. I've spoken about housing and homelessness many times in previous parliaments. That will continue. That work is absolutely vital. And of course, Mr. Speaker, affordability. Affordability issues are paramount for all of us. Let's work together to get it done. Thank you.
The member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, 30 years ago this week, ink hardly dry on my U of A business degree, I started selling season tickets for the Edmonton Oilers Hockey Club. Those were difficult years, post-dynasty and a tough Canadian economy, and our small Edmonton market was in imminent danger of losing our NHL team to a wealthy U.S. buyer. But then something magical happened. Edmontonians stepped up in spectacular fashion, cobbling together complicated season ticket sharing schemes with their friends, family, and neighbors to, in mere months, double our season ticket base to save the Oilers from the American threat. Over my 10 years there, and for 20 more since, the Oilers fan base has never wavered in their support. In recent years, Oilers fans have been rewarded with one of the most exciting teams in the history of our great game. Today, the Oilers stand once again on the edge of glory, an entire nation cheering them on. I know that all members of this House, rarely united on anything, can unite behind this remarkable Oilers team. At this one critical moment in history, undoubtedly Canada's team. Bring it home, boys.
Oral questions, questions orales. Oh, forgive me. I was excited to start question period. The member for Hamilton Mountain.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the constituents of Hamilton Mountain for electing me to a second term. And thank you to all of the amazing volunteers who brought such passion and hard work to help make it happen. I would like to remind colleagues and Canadians that this weekend marks the start of National Indigenous History Month. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to attend a Red Dress Day ceremony at the Native Women's Centre in my riding, and the tears were flowing all around the room as we lit candles to illuminate the names of dozens upon dozens of local missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and 2S LGBTQI+ people. I wore the red dress pin. I beaded myself under the tutelage of a master beater at an earlier event at the center. I clearly do not have my teacher's talent, but the process of beading was painful and intensely meaningful. Let's all take time this June to reflect on the history of Indigenous peoples and how we can advance reconciliation.
And now, oral questions, questions orales. The member for Thornhill.
The Prime Minister spent weeks parading around the country and promising Canadians he'd, quote, spend less. But the guy who was supposed to give us fiscal restraint dropped an 8% spending hike, after promising he'd cap government spending at 2%. A big broken promise and a $500 billion spending bill without an actual budget. He called himself an Ottawa outsider, but he's picking up pretty quick on the ways of old Liberal Ottawa. Businesses and households across the country spend their money and live within their means. Why can't the Prime Minister do the same?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. In fact, we have more good news, Mr. Speaker, for Canadians. In fact, Statistics Canada just announced this morning that the Canadian economy grew by 2.2% in the first quarter, Mr. Speaker. This is a plan that is working. This is a plan about building the strongest economy in the G7. This is about transforming our economy, Mr. Speaker. This is about an ambitious, a confident, and a prosperous Canada, Mr. Speaker. We will deliver for Canadians.
The member for Thornhill.
Leave it to the Liberals to tell Canadians that $500 billion blank check and an 8% spending hike after promising to cap it at 2% means good news for Canadians. A request for a $500 billion blank check isn't a plan. It's the exact opposite. And so far, the plan is the government wants to send $1,400 per Canadian family for consultants, for government consultants. He said they cut it by $7 billion. Instead, they increased it by $6 billion. If the Prime Minister is the man with a plan who you want to hire in a crisis, then why does he need to hire so many families?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, this is an interesting question, but the real question this morning is how much the Canadian economy has grown over the last quarter. And the answer, 2.2%. Much higher than economists' predictions. So when you have a plan to grow the Canadian economy, to make it the strongest in the G7, to transform our economy, to have an ambitious and prosperous country, Mr. Speaker, well, that's what Canadians have asked for, and that's what we're delivering.
Mr. Speaker, if the government had a plan, they'd table a budget yesterday and tell Canadians exactly how their money is being spent. And of course, nothing says affordability like hiring the architect of the housing crisis to fix the problem here. The new housing minister let Vancouver home prices rise by 179% when he was in office. So I have a very simple question. Can he tell us how much of this government's inflationary spending, how much is each Canadian mortgage going to go up as a result?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I like this question period this Friday because we have so many good news for Canadians. It is interesting, the question, but the real question is that we have a plan and our plan is working. 2.2%, Mr., in terms of growth in the last quarter. This is what Canada is about. It's about investing in our people. It's about investing in our industry. It's about investing in Canada. Mr. Speaker, not only we have growth, but we always have a triple rating, a AAA credit rating, Mr. Speaker. One of the two countries in the G7. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, that's a confident Canada. That's an ambitious Canada. That's the Canada we'll build together.
Le député pour Louis Saint-Laurent.
The honourable member for Louis Saint-Laurent, Akiawenrock. Well, Mr. Speaker, just a few weeks ago, all of these people were elected telling Canadians they would control spending. And on Tuesday, the King said that there would be new fiscal discipline with a maximum increase in spending of 2%. That was Tuesday morning. And then Tuesday afternoon, this government brought in new legislation. And actually, we saw that spending would go up by 8%. This new Prime Minister, who was supposed to be a global banker, who would have thought he would do worse than the former drama teacher, Justin Trudeau? So my only question to the Minister of Finance is, can you stop channeling Justin Trudeau? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Well, I have a great deal of respect for my colleague, Mr. Speaker. He's a veteran MP. But I don't know why he wants to distract Canadians from today's good news. For once, the Conservatives should be happy on a Friday morning, Mr. Speaker. We're looking at 2.2% growth in Canada. That's higher than what economists were predicting. We have a plan to grow the Canadian economy. We have a plan to build tomorrow's economy. We have a plan for a strong Canada. That's exactly what we're doing. The honourable member for Louis Saint-Laurent, Akiawenrock. Well, what's really going up, Mr. Speaker, what's going up by 36% is this Liberal government's spending on consultants. Already, last year, they were spending way too much, $20 billion, and yet now it's gone up to $26 billion. They have shown no ability to control spending. We can see that. Canadians want a government that controls spending. Why is the Minister of Finance refusing to table a budget? In fact, he was criticized by his leader last week. Will the Minister of Finance commit to tabling a budget this spring? The Honourable Minister of Finance. No, I'm sorry.
The Honourable Minister, le Ministre.
Oui, merci.
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That's fine. I don't need my full title. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. He mentioned drama, and I would just like to say that he also quite likes drama. We see him doing some pretty histrionic things during every question period. Well, we know that the Conservative platform wasn't worth the paper it was written on. Everyone who understands math throughout the country, ridiculed the Conservative platform. Meanwhile, we on this side of the House, we were elected with a clear mandate to reduce dependence on external consultants and have a strong public service and accomplish our ambitious agenda. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akiwanrak. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not being theatrical. These are facts. This government said it would reduce its spending on consultants, but actually we're seeing the exact opposite. 36%. That's the increase on consultants. For those who are listening at home, know that for every single family, those consultants are going to cost you $1,400 in taxes. That's the signature move of this government. Will someone tell this Minister of Finance that it makes no sense to further increase spending on consultants? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, we have reduced our dependence on consultants, but we were also elected on a very strong mandate. A mandate to increase government efficiency, for example, by using new technologies. My colleague mentioned Canadian families. Well, this week we tabled a motion in the House, a measure in the House, to give back on average each Canadian family $840 in tax cuts. Will the Conservatives support that measure? It's only common sense. The Honourable Member for Gaspésie-Les-Îles-La-Madeleine, Listigouche. Well, Mr. Speaker, elected officials should never spend Quebecers' money blindly, and yet that's exactly what the Liberals are proposing today. They're asking the House to adopt measures that are worth more than $200 billion without a budget. Not a budget, not even an economic update. They are spending without even trying to count what they're spending. If this new government wants to put an end to the frivolous image of the Trudeau years, well, they're off on the wrong foot. Will they finally make it clear to Quebecers what is actually going on with the public finances? The Honourable Minister of Finance. I have a great deal of respect for my new colleague, Mr. Speaker, and yet things are getting off on the right foot because the first thing we're doing is to bring in a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, including people in his riding, who will be very pleased to hear this news. 22 million Canadians will have to pay less in taxes. This is a key measure. During the campaign, we said we would make sure that Canadians had a more affordable lifestyle. And we're doing exactly what we promised. My colleagues should be happy to support this government measure. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, this government is continuing to spend Quebecers' money without a clear plan. They are trying to make people believe that they can continue to increase spending and yet somehow not increase the debt or cut services. Quebecers understand that makes no sense, but the Liberals are asking them to just trust them. Just trust us, even though we don't have a budget. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have shown over and over that they do not deserve Quebecers' blind trust. When will there finally be a budget? The Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, one thing is very clear. It's that Quebecers have placed their trust in us with 44 incredible Liberal MPs, twice as many as the Bloc Québécois, who have 22. Quebecers know that we are currently in a tariff war which is directly affecting our workers and economy. Our Quebec MPs and ministers are here to defend Quebec. That's what we're going to do. The Honourable Member for Beauharnois-Salaberry-Soulanges, Huntington. Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind the Liberals that Quebecers elected a minority government. They're expecting parties to cooperate. They're expecting transparency, and they're expecting some rigor. To bring in $200 billion in new spending without a budget to explain how these measures will actually be costed, that goes against the mandate that was granted to the Liberals, which was for cooperation, transparency, and rigor. Will the Liberals finally meet Quebecers' expectations? Will they table a budget? The Minister of Industry. The Liberal government will meet Quebecers' expectations, which is why Quebecers placed their trust in us. We saw that during the election. That's why we have 44 MPs, which is a record for our party. We're very proud of that. I'd like to thank all of my colleagues who worked so hard. Congratulations. And of course, we will on occasion cooperate with the Bloc Québécois. But the key point is that we will defend Canadian sovereignty, whereas the Bloc Québécois prefers to just focus on Quebec's sovereignty. We will be here to create jobs and protect our economy. That's our priority.
For Hastings, Lennox and Addington, and Tyne Denaga.
The Prime Minister's first bill has shattered his spending promises. He was elected on a promise of financial transparency, accountability, and responsibility. And only 1 month later, he has already torn down that facade, treating taxpayer dollars like some seedy, secretive corporate bank account instead of the purse strings of this nation. Mr. Speaker, in what world can this Prime Minister justify spending $500 billion in taxpayer dollars without a budget?
The President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, this new government is making sure that spending is being carefully managed and focused on our most pressing priorities. We will continue to review our spendings to make sure we are being efficient, effective, and focused on meeting the challenges and opportunities Canada faces.
The member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, and Tyne-Tenaga.
This government's dismissive rhetoric does not stand up to scrutiny. They promised to cap spending at 2%, but hours later increased it by 8%. No fiscal anchor, no fiscal guardrails. We are in a fiscal freefall, and working-class Canadians are paying the bill, including nearly $1,400 per household spent on this Prime Minister's corporate consultant cronies. Mr. Speaker, it's insulting to Canadians. How is this Liberal government asking to spend $500 billion without a budget?
The President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, let's talk about the investments in the main. It includes important funding to support the Canadian Forces, health services for First Nations, dental care, border services and immigration, veterans benefit and housing. The new government is investing in Canadians to build Canada strong.
The member for Haliburton-Kawartha Lakes.
Speaker, under these Liberals, it's the same spending, same ministers, and same painful consequences for Canadians. Except now, we don't know the government's full plan because they refuse to table a budget, something quite new to Canada. Budgets have been presented during wars, economic downturns, and yes, even following elections. We do know that this government has increased spending on consultants by 36%, meaning every Canadian household must pay $1,400 to get gimmicks instead of results. How is this Liberal government asking to spend $500 billion without even a budget?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's the same old Conservative, but with new slogan, Mr. Speaker. We're just a week in this House, and they're coming back with slogan. On this side of the House, Canadians watching at home know they can trust us, Mr. Speaker, because we promise and we deliver. We promise to be there for Canadians, and the first thing we delivered, Mr. Speaker, was a tax cut for 22 million Canadians. There are people in this riding watching today, and they're going to thank this new Liberal government, Mr. Speaker, to make their life more affordable. But we have even more good news, Mr. Speaker. We're removing the GST on new homes for first-time home buyers up to $1 million, Mr. Speaker. This is a...
The member for Haliburton-Kawartha Lakes.
Well, Speaker, I don't think asking for a budget on behalf of Canadians is a slogan, and actually something Canada has always had, is a budget. In fact, this government has spent $330,000 just on consultants to rebrand a Crown corporation. The goal of that name change is to get people real excited about high-speed rail from Toronto to Quebec City. People in my area have grown quite tired of waiting decades for this project to become reality. So when will the government actually get shovels in the ground instead of padding the pockets of well-connected Liberal consultants?
Minister of Transport.
I am glad to have the Conservatives finally talking about supporting big nation-building projects. At a time when our economy is being battered by U.S. tariffs, that is exactly what we need. Now is the time to get shovels in the ground. Now is the time to build high-speed rail. Now is the time to build Canada. That is what the Prime Minister will be talking about with premiers in Saskatoon. That is going to be what is in the bill that we will be presenting in this session, and we're going to count on the Conservatives to support that.
That's right. The member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, the new Liberal Prime Minister is keeping the wasteful spending of Justin Trudeau. In fact, they are increasing spending on building bureaucracy and on well-connected consultants. The Prime Minister promised to cap spending at 8% and instead is increasing it at 2% and instead is increasing it by 8%. That's without even tabling a budget to give this House a full picture of our public finances. How is the Liberal government asking to spend $500 billion without a budget plan?
The President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the member that a lot of that funds in the main estimates are transfer payments to provinces and territories. That means billions of federal support for the member's province and the constituents. I challenge the member to join us in supporting these investments so that we can deliver services to Canadians and build Canada strong.
The member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, this week's throne speech confirms that Canadians are in for more of the same recklessness with this Liberal government. They promised to cap the spending at 2%. They've broken their promise again. Spending $500 billion, almost 8% more than Justin Trudeau. Same limitless spending, same mistakes that got Canada into this mess. Canada can't trust the Liberals gambling with their futures. When will the Prime Minister stop hiding the state of our finances and release a budget?
Minister of Government, Transformation and Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very proud to have been elected with this government on a strong mandate to reduce bureaucracy, make government more efficient. We're working on it, and the goal is to spend less so that we can invest more, and that's exactly what we're doing with a tax cut for 22 million Canadians that's going to save on average per Canadian family $840. I'm hoping Conservatives will rally behind this common sense idea. Thank you.
The member for Regina, Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, over the last 10 years, the Liberal government's debt and deficits have been out of control. The Prime Minister said that his government had a plan to cap its spending increase at 2% and to cut expensive government consultants. But now the Liberals want to quadruple that spending increase and to spend 36% more on consultants, all without any accountability. Mr. Speaker, why are the Liberals spending $500 billion with no budget?
The Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy by the question by the member. In fact, what he's failing to tell Canadians watching today is that, in fact, Canada has one of the best balance sheets in the G7, Mr. Speaker. Not only we have a AAA credit rating, Mr. Speaker, but we have the lowest debt to GDP ratio, Mr. Speaker. That is an enviable position. I just presided over the G7 Finance Minister meeting in Banff recently. Mr. Speaker, the world is watching what Canada has to offer, and the world wants what Canada has to offer, Mr. Speaker. In this sense, Mr. Speaker, we're going to build the strongest economy of the G7. We're going to make this country resilient and ambitious for all Canadians.
La députée pour...
The honourable member for Côte-Nord, Kawawachkamach-Nitassinan. Mr. Speaker, 10 years ago the Liberals came to power and they promised to reform the EI system. Year after year, they assured workers that they were almost ready to act, that it would only take a few months at the most. But 10 years later, the EI reform has not even made the slightest appearance in the throne speech. And yet, we're at a time when we're in a trade war with the US, and key industries like aluminum are being affected by these tariffs. Does this government realize that this is the worst time to abandon our workers?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And in fact, we've already taken actions to strengthen EI and remove some of the challenges for workers who are facing unemployment to access EI. We know that we need to respond adeptly as these tariffs threaten our workers across Canada, and that is exactly what the Prime Minister has asked me and my colleagues to do. We'll continue to be there for workers. We'll continue to have an employment insurance system that works for everyone.
La députée pour Côte-Nord, Kawawachkamach-Nitassinan.
The honourable member. Mr. Speaker, there was not a single word about EI reform in the throne speech. And yet, we're in a tariff crisis. To back down on reforming EI would be to betray workers. The Liberals have been promising this reform for 10 years. They've carried out so many studies, so many consultations. Enough talk. It's time to walk the walk. Will this government reveal when exactly it will bring in EI reform? Or is it just going to admit to workers that it's abandoning them?
Monsieur le Président.
The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, this is a time of great tariff uncertainty and great uncertainty about trade with the U.S. At a time like this, it is essential that we protect our workers. That is why we've made EI easier to access. We have eliminated the waiting period before being able to access EI. We've also ensured that we no longer consider severance pay and so on to be part of something that could claw back EI. That way, we can have an EI system that protects everyone.
Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Speaker, on day one of his new job, the Prime Minister's housing minister told Canadians that home prices don't need to come down. After 10 years, the Liberals have doubled housing prices, down payments, mortgage payments, and rent. And now the housing minister is doubling down to keep home costs high. Can the Minister of Housing tell Canadians how many more families must fall behind before his government takes action and finally tables a budget?
Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, this government is taking action to put more money in Canadians' pockets by cutting their taxes right now. And we expect the support of the members opposite to ensure that Canadians can afford more housing options because they have more money in their pockets. It's simple math, difficult for the Conservatives across maybe to comprehend, but cutting taxes on GST for first-time home buyers and income tax delivers more affordability.
Yeah.
The member for Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Speaker, the Ontario Land Registry Office, Terranet, reports the average age of a first-time home buyer in Ontario last year was 40, up from 34 a decade earlier. New data also shows GTA home sales are the worst since the market crash of the 1990s. And at home, the Niagara Home Builders Association has said housing starts in Niagara are at a 10-year low. This is the Liberals' government's 10-year record, Speaker. So can the Prime Minister tell us why Canadians should trust him and his government to fix the problems they themselves created?
Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, I served for 10 years as mayor of Vancouver on the front lines of a housing crisis.
Hear, hear.
Cities, as many mayors and councillors here in Ottawa this week know, do not have the tools, the finances, or the jurisdiction to solve a housing crisis. That's why I'm here now. I am here now so the federal government can implement changes to make housing more affordable at a scale not seen in generations.
Thank you.
The member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Mr. Speaker, after 10 years, the Liberals have doubled housing prices. The new minister's housing record shows the government is more of the same. As Mayor of Vancouver, he oversaw rent increasing 50%, house prices increasing 179%, and homelessness up 40%. And yet we know we must build more homes to meet demand. The City of Langford is actually discussing slowing down the development of homes, stating, quote, "There is no award for overachieving." How many more Canadians must struggle to find a home before this government finally tables a budget?
The Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, getting affordable homes built in Canada means partnership and collaboration across all levels of government. Federal government,
that's right.
Provinces and territories, cities, Indigenous communities. Challenges that we have on the ground in communities. For 7 of my 10 years as mayor, it was a Conservative government that did nothing for affordable housing across Canada.
That's right.
The Député de Beauce.
The member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the housing minister on his first day in office told Canadians that how home prices don't need to come down and that the market is stable. But vacancy rate is under 2% in most towns in my riding. Costs have gone up about double since 2021. The government's measures are not enough. It's insufficient. Young Canadians deserve to be able to buy their own home. When will this government cut bureaucracy and bring forward real solutions to the housing crisis? The Minister of Industry. Mr. Speaker, these problems are very real. We have an excellent minister who can handle the matter, and we have a great plan too. In the meantime, we need to work together. We need to build more homes. We need to make housing more affordable. We need to help workers in the meantime, workers who are affected by Trump's tariff war. So, under the current circumstances, we are building a construction industry to help lumber workers, steel workers, and steel and aluminum workers. So I look forward to working with my colleague on this question. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, it's just not enough. Many young Canadians have lost their dream to own a home of their own. After 10 years, Liberals doubled rent, doubled mortgage payments, doubled home prices, and doubled mortgages. Canadians can't breathe, Mr. Speaker. According to the housing company, things have doubled recently in Quebec. Does the minister feel that prices in Quebec need to come down so that young people can make their dreams come true? Mr. Minister, yes or no? The Honourable Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Here's what Quebecers and Canadians do want to know. They want to know how we're going to help them through this housing and affordability crisis. The minister has been clear about this, so has our government. We are cutting taxes. We are cutting taxes for the middle class. We also want to cut GST for first-time home buyers. We also cut the carbon tax. We are working to improve affordability. We're also going to create jobs in construction sectors.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I would like to acknowledge and thank the constituents in my amazing riding, Saint-Boniface-Saint-Vital. I thank them for placing their trust in me to represent them here in the House of Commons.
Northern and Arctic Affairs. The prairies are affected by drought and warmer than normal temperatures for a third straight season. The conditions are fueling the severity of wildfires and posing significant risks to our communities. We're not yet in June, and thousands of Canadians across the prairies have been forced out of their homes, including thousands of...
Minister of Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, my heart is with everyone across the country that is affected by these devastating wildfires, especially the people of my riding, Churchill-Kuwait-Nukaskia. The fear and uncertainty are overwhelming, but they are not alone. I remain in constant contact with my federal colleagues, provincial, local, Indigenous leaders, including Councillor Debbie Dumas, to ensure every person gets the support that they need. The federal government, the Canadian Armed Forces are fully mobilized, people are being evacuated, and we stand united in this crisis.
The member for North Island, Powell River.
After 10 years of Liberal government, Mr. Speaker, many Canadians no longer feel safe in their own communities. Violent crime is up 50%. Gang homicides are up 78%. Gun crime up 116%. The direct result of the revolving door Liberal justice system, or injustice system, I should say, and weak Liberal laws that serve the interests of criminals and not Canadians. So, Mr. Speaker, if this really is a new government, will the Prime Minister repeal Trudeau's old soft-on-crime policies, including Bill C-5 and Bill C-75?
The Minister of Public Safety.
Our plan to keep communities safe will keep drugs, guns, and criminals off our streets. We're committed to hiring 1,000 more CBSA and 1,000 more RCMP officers to secure our border and help keep our streets safe. We're partnering with police services across the country to fight organized crime. We will make it tougher for violent criminals to get bail and impose stricter sentences for repeat violent offenders. We will always be there to protect Canadians.
The member for North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, the now Minister of Public Safety said during the campaign that there was nothing wrong with the bail system in Canada. He even said it was, quote, quite sound. This despite the deadly spree of murders and other violent attacks committed by those out on bail and frontline officers across the country demanding immediate reform. So does the Prime Minister agree with his Minister of Public Safety that there's no problem with the bail laws in Canada or the frontline officers who are demanding real action now?
Hear, hear. Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, it's always heartening to see the opposition clip something that's completely out of context, and unfortunately, the Conservative candidate in my riding didn't even show up for the debate. So let me just be clear. Our government was elected on April the 28th with a mandate of ensuring that our communities are safe. That is exactly what we will do. We will work with law enforcement. This morning, I had the opportunity to meet, along with the Minister of State for Labour, members of the CPA, Canadian Police Association, and I look forward to working with law enforcement across this country to make our communities safer, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, after knocking on thousands of doors in my community this past spring, I heard the same concerns, that people are worried about the rise in crime. In Winnipeg, violent crimes like assaults, threats, and extortion are increasing. Homicide Canada reported that in 2024, Winnipeg saw over 40 homicides for the 6th year in a row. Because of Liberal bills C5 and C75, repeat violent offenders are treated with kid gloves and get released. When will the Liberals finally put the rights of victims and law-abiding Canadians ahead of their soft-on-crime, hug-a-thug agenda?
The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada.
Mr. Speaker, I'll take a moment to thank my constituents for returning me to the House of Commons for the 4th time and rising as the first time as Minister of Justice and Attorney General. Talking to people during the campaign back home, they said when dangerous people commit serious crimes and pose a threat to the public safety, they should face serious consequences. We have listened to them, Mr. Speaker, and are moving forward with stronger bail provisions for auto theft, for home invasions, for drug trafficking. We're also going to advance stronger sentences for serious crimes and for repeat offenders. We're going to do what it takes to ensure that Canadians can feel safe in their communities and be safe in their communities.
The member for Richmond Centre Marpole.
Mr. Speaker, since 2016, 50,000 Canadians died from drug overdoses, mostly from fentanyl. Mass fentanyl production is mass murder. Conservatives propose life sentences for producing or distributing over 40 milligrams. How many more Canadians must die before the Prime Minister treats mass production of fentanyl as mass murder and supports life sentence for drug kingpins?
Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the fentanyl crisis has impacted every community, not just in Canada, in North America, and many communities around the world. We're accelerating our work to crack down and dismantle the fentanyl trade and organized crime groups that profit from it. That's why we listed 7 cartels as terrorist entities under the criminal code. And I'm working closely with Kevin Brasseau, Canada's fentanyl czar at home and abroad, to put a laser-sharp focus on dismantling fentanyl rings, Mr. Speaker. We will always be there to protect Canadians.
The member for Portage-Lisker.
Like most Canadians, I don't stash my assets in offshore tax havens in Bermuda or the Cayman Islands, and like them, I believe in shining a little sunlight on the people who govern us. The Prime Minister claims his assets are in a blind trust, but Canadians are the ones completely in the dark. He absolutely knows what his assets were before he placed them into a blind trust. So I'll ask a simple question that deserves a simple answer. Does the Prime Minister knowingly or blindly hold any financial interest in any offshore tax havens? Yes or no?
Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we are so proud to have a new Prime Minister with a clear vision of the country, with a plan to rebuild our economy, a plan to take on the tariff challenges with the United States, the plan to give prosperity to all Canadians, and of course, a plan to comply stringently with the Code of Ethics for all parliamentarians, which is among the most stringent in the world. He will be complying, that member will be complying, we will all be complying, and Canadians should feel very reassured about that.
Member for Portage-Lisker.
I do not feel reassured. I certainly did not hear a no in there, but what we do know is that this Prime Minister was implicated in setting up offshore tax havens to avoid paying Canadian taxes. We know he's sitting on stocks from Brookfield Assets, which is riddled with conflicts of interest and benefits handsomely from government conflicts. We know he's perfectly fine to promote companies Brookfield owns on the debate stage, so what will he do to help himself behind the closed doors of government? Canadians deserve to know if he will financially benefit from any current or future contracts Brookfield gets with his government. So when will the Prime Minister come clean and tell Canadians what assets he personally holds?
The Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, this Prime Minister has been the governor of 2 central banks, has a successful career that I'm sure he's very proud of in the private sector, has come to public service once again, another tour of public service for our Prime Minister with a clear plan to get Canada's economy back on track. That's what the Prime Minister is up to. What he's also up to is stringent compliance with the code of ethics that this Parliament has imposed upon itself, one of the most serious and stringent in the world. Canadians should feel very reassured.
The member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Mr. Speaker, if the Prime Minister has a plan, we'd sure love to see it here in Parliament. Mr. Speaker, on the eve of the election, when he was trying to get elected, the Prime Minister went on an Oilers radio show in Edmonton, asked about oil. He said, quote, "There's a massive opportunity. If you look out east, particularly in Quebec, they import about 365,000 barrels a day. 70% of that's coming from the U.S. So we've got an opportunity to displace there." But in the past, well, first of all, he's got a Quebec minister who's now looking at me in complete disagreement with those statements. But even the Prime Minister has said as much as half of oil reserves, proven oil reserves, need to stay in the ground.
The Minister
Which of the Prime
for
Minister's position should we believe?
Minister for Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, to win this trade war, we will build on Canada's terms to deliver the strongest, most resilient economy in the G7. Canada's new government will cut red tape, fast-track projects of national interest, and guarantee decisions within 2 years. We are not building just for speed, we are building for purpose, to have a strong negotiating hand and unlock the next generation of Canadian prosperity. We will get projects built to make Canada an energy superpower.
The member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Look, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister went on to say, like we've got this resource, at a minimum, we should be using it all the time ourselves because we're going to use what I call conventional oil and gas for the rest of my life and beyond. He said that in Edmonton when he was trying to get elected, but he has a history of saying that we should leave oil and gas in the ground. When will this government finally repeal Bill C-69 to create the conditions that will actually allow us to take advantage of this massive opportunity to be realized?
Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to give a shout out to the Edmonton Oilers who won last night. So, Mr. Speaker, my goal is to get things built where we have proponents. We will make Canada strong and protect ourselves from American tariffs. I encourage my Conservative colleagues to join us in building the strongest economy in the G7.
Katoon West.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's energy sector and economy continues to be held back by Liberal anti-energy laws like the industrial carbon tax and Bill C-69, which blocks all new energy infrastructure. This is compounded by Justin Trudeau's energy production cap, which will kill 54,000 jobs and gut $20 billion from the Canadian economy. This new Prime Minister likes to market himself as the anti-Trudeau. Well, it's time for him to prove it. Will the Prime Minister repeal the industrial carbon tax, repeal C-69, and repeal the oil and gas production cap? Or is he just another Trudeau clone willing to let our energy sector die?
Great question.
Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Today, Canadians are facing threats to our way of life from both climate change and American tariffs. We are tackling these problems head-on by building clean energy projects that will fight climate change and make Canada the strongest economy in the G7. The industrial carbon price attracts new investment, creates jobs, and grows our economy. With innovation in carbon capture, we will build low-cost, low-risk, low-carbon superpower. I encourage my colleagues to join us in building a stronger Canada.
The member for Sudbury.
Monsieur le Président, Sudbury.
Mr. Speaker, Sudbury, like Canada itself, has everything it needs to be an economic powerhouse. Sudbury has a skilled workforce, abundant natural resources, world-class research facilities too. Throughout the campaign, I heard from researchers, innovators, and business leaders who wanted to know how the federal government will help them navigate this period of uncertainty. Can the Minister of Industry inform the House how we will fight in order to protect and build a prosperous and resilient Canadian economy? The Minister of Industry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for her question, and I also thank her on her election in Sudbury and her hard work for the people of Sudbury. She is right that the American tariff war and trade war does cause a lot of uncertainty throughout Canada That's why we're going to invest significantly to create jobs throughout the country, including in her riding of Sudbury and in Northern Ontario in general. We will attract investment from around the world. We will decrease our dependence on Americans. Canada is open for business.
Mr. Speaker, just hours before the May long weekend, Parks Canada blindsided my region by banning motorized boats on Clear Lake after confirming access a week earlier. There was no consultation or warning. Locals cared deeply about the lake, which is why the agency's one boat, one lake policy had broad support. But when asked what suddenly changed, Parks Canada refused to justify its damning decision that caused whiplash in the region. Will the minister reinstate the one boat, one lake policy that Parks Canada supported just weeks ago?
Great question.
Minister of Canadian Identity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, in that lake and in that region, we are facing a zebra mussel invasion, which we must intervene to control. Otherwise, it could spread in the region, in other water basin, and around that area, Mr. Speaker, which is why with Parks Canada, with local partners, with Indigenous partners who support what Parks Canada has been doing, we are trying to tackle this issue as rapidly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, that answer is unacceptable. The mismanagement by Parks Canada of Rocky Mountain National Park is not new, and neither is the minister's refusal to act. He's been warned time and again that Parks Canada ongoing failures. No communication, no engagement, and no accountability. Every time Canadians raise the alarm, the minister insists things will improve. But nothing ever changes, Mr. Speaker. Will the minister finally take responsibility and replace the superintendent of Rocky Mountain National Park to restore trust and confidence?
Great.
That's right.
Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture.
Mr. Speaker, what the member opposite is saying is simply not true. And we have, in fact, been working with local authorities. Parks Canada provided funding to compensate some of the loss in revenues last year because of the closure. As we are trying to tackle this very important crisis, it is totally irresponsible for this member to somehow suggest that we should just let the zebra mussel spread all around Manitoba. Imagine the impacts for local drinking water, for commerce, for businesses all across the province. This is totally irresponsible, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Parkland.
Mr. Speaker, as fires burn across the prairies, I know I speak for everyone in this House that our hearts are with all of those who have been impacted and those who are working tirelessly to protect our communities. Now, in the wake of the Jasper fire, we learned about the devastating consequences of poor forest management that failed to clear swaths of dead forest. Experts are now sounding the alarm that communities in national parks like Banff face similar threats this summer. Can the government tell us what preparations, if any, have been undertaken by Parks Canada to protect communities from wildfire?
Director of Emergency Management and Community Resilience.
Mr. Speaker, I'm monitoring the wildlife situation around the clock, and I'm in close communication with my provincial counterparts. The Canadian Armed Forces are evacuating First Nations and others affected by the wildfires. Leaving your home under these circumstances is incredibly difficult, and our government will continue to support and protect all of those affected by wildfires. There's nothing more important than keeping Canadians safe.
Don Valley North.
Speaker, at the doors in Don Valley North, I heard from many constituents that access to affordable housing is one of their top concerns. I, like every member on this side, feel proud to stand with a government that has put forward the most ambitious housing plan this country has seen since the Second World War. Can the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure tell my constituents what they can look forward to seeing from this plan?
Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question and thank the voters in Don Valley North for electing her here to this House. We will get hundreds of thousands of new homes built, more affordable homes across Canada, and double the share of non-market affordable housing in this country by starting up Build Canada Homes, a new entity that will build affordable homes at scale across Canada, utilizing public land and even existing structures. We will be cutting municipal development charges, working with municipalities to bring down those costs as well, and much more.
Bravo.
Le député pour Mégantic-L'Érable, Lotbinière.
The member for Mégantic-L'Érable, Lotbinière. On July 6, 2013, the town of Mégantic, Lac Mégantic, experienced the worst railway tragedy in Canadian history. 47 people lost their lives. 4,344 days later, despite political commitments and several unanimous motions in this House, the citizens of Lac Mégantic are still waiting for work to begin on the rail bypass to get the train out of the town centre. Justin Trudeau declared to the people of Lac Mégantic on May 11, 2018, "We're going to get it done." When will the Minister of Transport come to Lac Mégantic to tell the people the truth and explain why trains are still running through our town centre? The Minister of Transport. Thank you for the question. This is a very serious matter. As newly appointed Minister of Transport, I would like to begin by expressing my most sincere sympathy to all those in Lac Mégantic who suffered enormously. This is a top priority for our government. This matter must be a priority for our government. In fact, it should be a priority for all members of Parliament. We will get it done.
Speaker, yesterday I tabled the first private member's bill in this Parliament, Bill C-201, which aims to bring mental health, addictions and substance use services into our universal public health care system. The last Liberal government promised to ensure mental health is treated as a full and equal part of Canada's public health care system, but they failed to deliver. Untreated mental illness has enormous costs for families, communities and our economy. Will this new government recognize that investing in mental health is good for all Canadians and support my bill?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I'd like to thank the constituents of Papineau who have given me the privilege to represent them here in this House. I would also like to thank the opposition member for his question. I would like to assure him that mental health is a priority for me. Canadians who need mental health services should know that the federal government will work closely with provinces and territories so that they can access these services. Thank you.
Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Saskatchewan and Manitoba burn, there's precious little content in the speech from the throne on how this government plans to approach the climate crisis. There's not a single reference to the Paris Agreement and our legally binding targets to cut emissions by at least 40% by 2030. November 2024, we were only 7% below 2005 levels. When will this government present a plan? So far, all they've done is cut the one measure that was working.
Hear, hear.
Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
As the members mentioned, there are wildfires raging across our country. It brings to the heart just how important climate change is and fighting climate change is for our strong, secure future for our country. I'm absolutely committed to working with provinces, territories and Indigenous peoples to make sure that we reduce our emissions, fight climate change and keep Canadians safe.
That concludes question periods.
So, daily routine of business, tabling of documents, introduction of government bills, statements by ministers.
Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. Introduction of private members' bills.
First reading of Senate public bills. Motions. Presenting petitions. The member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, first, this petition is a bit dated, but it is important and it is timely. This is straight from the petitioners, Mr. Speaker. They cite that they're personally moved by the heartbreaking violence that has claimed the lives of thousands of innocent people in Gaza and Palestine due to the